Hi, I'm Tom Matyas, and this is my work in the All Walls Member Show. It's called the Hall of Rhetoric, and it's a 3D work that's made from laser cut MDF with some collage elements, and the base is wood with some pencil marks. There's some other wood pieces. The centerpiece is cast concrete, and then the upright is a piece of found steel. One of the things that I usually am interested in my 3D works is the idea of scale. So usually the sculptures that I make have a sort of ambiguous scale. It sort of at first glance might look like a model for something that's very large, like a cathedral or a monument, but then there's other elements like the graph paper collage insets and the mark making on it that sort of suggest more of a human scale, like a one-to-one scale, rather than something that's intended to be a representative of something larger. So I like that ambiguity, that when you look at it, you're not really sure whether it's a model of something else or whether this is it, this is the size that it is. So, and most of my 3D works do sort of play around with that idea. And my paintings as well. I've gotten a lot of feedback from people who say they think, they're surprised that my paintings are so small because they look like they're representations of large objects. But the other thing that really influences a lot of my work is the idea of language in various ways. Not that I will incorporate text directly, because usually that sort of takes focus from everything else. When someone sees a word, a recognizable word in the painting, it always feels to me like it takes focus from everything else, because you're trying to think, what does that word mean? What is the association there? So I don't include text directly, but it's definitely an influence in the type of shapes that I use. Very interested not only in architecture but in type design. So a lot of the shapes that are found across all of my work are very similar and are influenced by type design. I like to take sort of the way a typeface is designed. Certain simple shapes are the basis of it all, and the combination or variations on those shapes create a whole multitude of other shapes. So I usually start with just a single shape. So for example, here I just started with what I had was this shape initially. I try not to make it too obvious. It is sort of an unconscious thing. But some people have looked at my work and immediately said, well, I see a T or an M, and they're wondering, is it a way of signing the work? Are you hiding text? And I'm not really doing that, but I'm not really interested so much in the meaning of words, but how they're constructed. So language is also a very big influence in this work, and really most of my work, in that I'm interested in the structure of language, not so much what it means, but how it conveys what it does, the structure of it, and how those structures of language can be translated into a three-dimensional work. I'm also a composer, and it's the same thing in my musical compositions. The structure is very influenced by rhetoric and the structure of words and the structure of arguments. So this piece, when I began it, it was, like I said, just this one shape. And as I sort of began to work on it, it developed into more of this sort of longitudinal orientation that you see here. It sort of began to stretch out as I added different elements. And I think once you do that, you go from what might be seen as a single statement to more like a sentence, because you're putting different objects into relation with each other like you would in a sentence or in an argument. So as soon as I started to do that, it started to make me think more of sentences or rhetorical devices or or the way an argument is created. And I think it's really not a coincidence that this sort of looks like a cathedral in certain ways, because I've always thought of religious architecture as a very narrative form. When you go into, say, a cathedral, a lot of the ways that you progress through it are very similar to an argument in classical rhetoric. So, for example, the entrance might be, if you think of this as an entrance, that's sort of similar to the introduction of an argument, or in rhetoric is called the exordium. And then as you progress through, it is in a way a narrative. You're following an argument from beginning to end. And especially with cathedrals, if you walk through a cathedral, you're sort of taking a journey. And I sort of think of this as also a journey. You're following it through the way you would follow an argument. And in a cathedral, like the way you would possibly conclude that argument is you get to the high altar, which is, in rhetoric, would be the conclusion or the peroratio. So I think of it the same way, almost like an argument that goes from beginning to end. It has a flow and a beginning and a conclusion. So it might sound like it's all very planned out, but it really is a sort of kind of intuitive process, where I'll just begin with something very simple and then manipulate it until it starts to suggest other things. But as with most of my paintings and even my music compositions, the basis of it is something very simple. And I'm very interested in how a small amount of material can be used to, through combining it and recombining it, can create something much larger and more interesting. So that's sort of an overview of the piece, and I hope you'll be able to come and see it at the member show. Thank you.